Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a presentation of Take Back Kentucky, an organization of organizations and individuals who feel strongly that our nation and the principles on which it was based are under increasing assault by decidedly un-American interests, both within and without our borders. Many of the various groups represented by Take Back Kentucky themselves disagree on major issues, but we all feel that our personal differences must be worked out within the parameters of our own Constitution and its Bill of Rights and the protection to us as individuals which it affords. We feel that the anti-American interests who are seeking to implement global economies and so-called free trade and in fact a New World Order are seeking to implement same by bringing the United States down to a level of the rest of the world by making us give up those rights and principles which made this country great. We feel that the best way to resist the implementation of this New World Order and its attack on the American way of life is to resist by defending the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, both on the federal level and on the state level where those constitutions afford us individual rights and privacies. Now, of course, the question arises, who are these un-American interests who seek to undermine the American dream and the American vision? What are their methods and plans for undermining individual rights and property rights and implementing a disarmament policy against the American public? How can they be identified? How can they be resisted? And how can I, as an individual, or you as an individual, possibly make any difference in this massive scenario of political intrigue and global strategy? Well, today I'm going to introduce you to one man, one individual who has worked tirelessly to educate himself and others regarding the identity and methods of the agents of the New World Order. This man has discovered methods of education and organization both on a local and statewide level that have resulted in the Commonwealth of Kentucky taking the leadership position in actively resisting the implementation of this so-called New World Order and their anti-American agenda. The success of his efforts can be measured in the pure fact that the Commonwealth of Kentucky and its legislature remains the only legislature in North America to pass resolutions and laws specifically in opposition to the implementation of this New World Order and its agenda. Included in that is the resolution which opposes the acquisition of land within the United States by the United Nations or its sub-agencies, and Kentucky's resolute opposition to funding federal mandates reached through treaties and federal regulations. This is a massive subject. It deserves intense scrutiny, and today you're going to get a taste of what the issues are, and you're going to get a real look at a gentleman who has effectively opposed the New World Order by standing up for the principles of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, private property, individual rights, and the right to bear arms here in the United States and in the state of Kentucky. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just scratched the surface. The gentleman I'm about to introduce to you is going to give you more information on a more serious problem than you possibly imagined prior to watching this. I hope that he captures your attention like he's captured ours. And at this time, without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you a gentleman who is a role model for all truly patriotic Americans, Mr. Norman Davis. Mr. Davis.
I'm Norman Davis. I'm what we call a moderator of Take Back Kentucky. And what we're going to do today is try to explain what we have found and what we have done. As Gatewood told you earlier, we are an organization of organizations. We look at it as a coalition of organizations that probably agree on 90% of the issues. We do not agree on everything, but we figure it's better to agree on 90% and work on them than it is not work together. Because by working together, it gives us a force that we have found to be unstoppable. And we're going against organizations and lobbyists who've had 20 years, 30 years of kicking our tails. And what we're going to do today is explain how this came about, what we found out, and it goes back to about 1.5 years ago, or in January of 95, 96, when I got a call from Western Kentucky. They said, Norm, and I was president of the Rights, Kentucky for the Right to Bear Arms, said, Norm, you better come over here because we found out we don't even own our own land in Western Kentucky. I said, what are you talking about, Jerry? And Jerry said, we found out we're stakeholders. And we looked it up in the law dictionary, and a stakeholder is a third party in possession of something, and in their case, land, when the first two parties are yet to determine who's the real owner. I said, well, Jerry, this can't be true. You're telling me something can't happen. I mean, you own your land. And they were told at a meeting outside Paducah, Kentucky, that they are in a biosphere. And that land between the lakes and is a biosphere with core areas and all. I said, well, Jerry, I don't understand. He said, well, we don't either. Come over and help. So I took off and went Western Kentucky. And we have some Western Kentucky people here today, and they all recall this. We went to work to see what we did have in Western Kentucky. And we found out that in the western part of Kentucky, it is a 10-county area as a United Nations biosphere. Now, a biosphere is an area that has 3 sections to it. One section, the core area, or corridors along rivers, this is an area where they want, under United Nations, UNESCO, no human intrusion. In other words, if you own this land in the future, it's to be no human intrusion. Well, how can this be? This can't really happen. This is America. Then we found out that around these biospheres, or core areas, we have buffer zones. And this on this map is the yellow areas. Again, you're not allowed to live there. That is for tourism, recreation, research, to study the bacteria and the animals. And then we'll all be allowed to live in what is left of these little areas. And like in these little areas, or in the 4 corner states, the green areas is where people will be allowed to live. The red, no human intrusion whatsoever. They don't want human intrusion. The yellow, again, that's a buffer area. We said, well, this can't be true. So we started looking for information. And we were led by some experts that had been fighting this for years to a report on the Commission on Global Governance. This just isn't a book. This is a United Nations report. And in this, you're told in 3 main parts we're going to touch on today. On page 131, and we'll have you a closer view later, you are told you are going to be disarmed. Well, we had heard this before as a gun organization, and that's what led to this little manual put out by the United States government. This tells you you're going to be disarmed in 3 stages. We said, well, now, just because this says it and this says it doesn't really make it so. Well, they also have the Charter of the United Nations. And in 3 places in this, they tell where they have to work together on agreements and that they must form agreements and treaties for every nation to disarm everyone. Period. That's it. So then we found other treaties and all that were made. The Open Skies Treaty. Russians are flying over our country today. We're supposed to be able to fly over other countries. Open Skies Treaty. There's other disarmament treaties we're not going to get into. The second part of this we're going to talk about, well now, they're going to disarm us. Now what else are they going to do? Well, then we found the environment section. And we'll get into this later. And this is all of this. This is what we're going to cover today. And then, how are they going to enforce this? Well, we know they've got our guns, or they want them. They tell us they're going to use the environment program to control our land and our resources. and then compulsory jurisdiction by the United Nations under a world system. Well, we got to looking further. We found the experts, and they began to tell us these things and educate us in the directions the country's going. And one of these experts is a Dr. Michael Kaufman in Bangor, Maine. He's president of the Environmental Perspectives. And Dr. Kaufman tells us in here, and we'll get you a close-up of this shortly. Dr. Kaufman tells us that moderate improvements in laws and regulations, rhetoric offered in lieu of genuine change. We're talking about our environment. Dr. Kaufman tells us these are all forms of appeasement. These are all forms of appeasement designed to satisfy the public's desire to believe that sacrifice, struggle, and the wrenching transformation of society will not be necessary. Now, everyone knows that on the news all we hear about today is the environment. Just the other night, we heard where our Vice President, Al Gore, had a vision. Al now wants to put a satellite up at, I've heard, from $40 to $80 million. I don't know the cost, but, or $1 billion. He wants to put this satellite up, focus on the earth, show close-up of man's destruction, because we live. But yet, we find out in all this stuff we're going to cover today, and we will convince you that it's a war on man. It is a war on man, protecting the environment or an assault on humankind. It is an assault. We will cover this. Now, we dug into this a little further, and we found some things I'm going to tell you about. And I don't have all day, so I'm going to touch on a few items. We found that these are, we heard about the Global Warming Treaty. Under the Global Warming Treaty, the United States is supposed to cut its utility, electrical energy, gasoline, all of our energy by 7%, less than you were using in 1990. This particular publication, the Kentucky Journal of Commerce and Industry, a well-respected one, states that there will be a loss of 600,000 U.S. jobs. We're talking yearly. In the U.S. GDP, there will be a 2 to 4 year % drop per year. That's not good. We found out that not only that little section of western Kentucky, laying between the lakes area, we found out there's a bigger plan. The entire southern part of the Mississippi River falls under, and it includes 21 counties in Kentucky. 21 western counties. This you can get simply by calling the National Park Service in Denver at 303-969-2268 and ask for the Lower Mississippi Delta Heritage Study Packet. They will send you this map, a lot of information, and a real pretty big map, color, with all the reasons they want to take this land. So we got to checking into this a little further, and we found out, I live in farm country. We found out they want us to cut our cattle production 20%. 20%. And guess why? The cows, they call it, flatulate too much and produce methane. Now, the real reason behind this is they want to cut grain being consumed by these cattle 20% to send to countries in Europe and Asia, particularly Asia and Africa, where they can't feed themselves. But they won't eat the cattle. We found another program, and this is really a bad copy, I'm sorry, but, well, you do the best you can with the information you give. We found another program put out by the USDA, who also control your cattle. They want to put in, by the year 2002, 2 million miles of buffers around every creek and river. That's less than 4 years away. That's land out of cattle production. You can find this on the internet under USDA. So we went to our congressman, we said, and we have what we consider to be a decent congressman, Ron Lewis. We talked to Ron. Ron kind of had doubts, and he went to check in on it. So then Ron wrote us a letter. He states, he goes through the, thank you for contacting me with your concerns about the Clinton administration's involvement with United Nations efforts that could lead to limits on diesel fuel. He then goes in, says, we've taken a closer look at this issue. I can't say that I'm very encouraged by what I have found. Well, I'm not either. There is a pending international treaty known as the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. We'll call it the Global Warming Treaty. It's Kyoto, Japan. He states that greenhouse gas emissions are the main target of the UNFCCC agreement. Supporters claim 20% of the greenhouse gas emissions can be blamed on agriculture. 20% on agriculture. Remember we just talked about these 20% of the cattle they want to reduce? He states, among their proposals are fuel economy requirements, the reduction or phase out of diesel fuel use. Now, how many electric trucks do we have to carry the groceries to the stores? You know? The reduction or phase out of diesel fuel, restrictions on fertilizer use, and I'll touch on this in a minute, and on livestock production. There's our livestock again, the 20% on the methane. He states that they are working on this and that they are going to try to put a halt to it. And again, he says, the time has come for Congress and the affected industries like agriculture to let the administration know their concern. And the 17 farm organizations are now working on this. This has to be stopped. Our utilities will increase by 50% singly for the reason of the treaty, if our Senate ratifies it. Now, we thought, well, the treaty won't be ratified. Well, then we found out not only the treaty, but all of these programs are being implemented by presidential executive order, and that's what's killing us. When the president sits up there, can't get a treaty through, then he writes an executive order. He sends these orders to the agencies, Department of Interior, Department of State, and so on. That's what's killing us. So then we said, we got to look and see what these things are, so we'll know what the agencies are going to do. Well, first thing we found was everything was falling under what's called the Biodiversity Treaty, a harmless little 17-page document, or we thought. This little 17-page document that our lovely president signed called for everything to be regulated and based on a global biodiversity assessment. What is it? Nobody knew. Finally, Henry Lamb and Dr. Kaufman, they found it in Europe. The UN denied it existed, but they found it. It's a 1,700-page document that calls for everything. They regulate everything. And under the Global Biodiversity Treaty, we found, and I'm going to give you a few items, Article 8, A, establish a system of protected areas, or areas where special measures need to be taken to conserve biological diversity. We're talking these areas again. So this is the third time we run across this. Develop where necessary guidelines for the selection, establishment, and management of protected areas. There we are again. Regulate. Or manage biological resources important for the conservation of biological diversity. Then we look up the definitions. Biological diversity, and get this is going to blow your mind. Biological diversity means the variability among living organisms from all sources, including inter alia, terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems. Are you all aquatic? Don't think so. So we're going to protect the bacteria, the fish, and everything aquatic. Then we go on and we find to promote the protection of ecosystems. Now this goes back to your regulations. Their natural habitats and the maintenance of viable populations of species in the natural surrounding. There we are, back to protecting the bacteria. Promote environmentally sound and sustainable development. We're going to touch on this one good. In areas adjacent to. This is going to be your buffer areas. Adjacent to protected areas with a view to furthering protection of these areas. Now, we don't have time to cover everything, but your core area is supposed to expand as time goes. Naturally, the buffer area will have to surround it, will then expand again, forcing these larger areas to becoming smaller where you're supposed to live. And then it goes on, they tell you that they're going to rehabilitate and restore degraded ecosystems and promote the recovery of threatened species, inter alia, through the development and implementation of plans or other management setups. Establish and maintain means to regulate. There we go, regulate. They're going to regulate it again. And then they're going to subject all the members who sign the treaty to national legislation. Every nation will be subject to it. Well, our Senate wouldn't do it. So the President signs the order. And that's how we've got it. That's where we're at today. Excuse me. Now, we want to know, well, what are these ecosystem things? Well, we found under the ecosystems, really quick, from the American sheep industry, they found a definition, and it all goes back to reinventing government. And this came from Al Gore. Now, we were talking about reinventing government under our Al Gore, Vice President Al Gore, the man who has the visions. And in this it says that a centralized government is to have the authority to intrude into almost every aspect of American life. Now, each one of you can get these things. They're regulatory reinvention by our great Vice President. What they do is issue the orders to the agencies, and this is what we get. And by getting these things that will blow your mind, and we study them, you can see, is right back to this. They will regulate through reinvented government by our visionary Vice President, so that we won't have people in areas, we won't have people in the area outside, but we can go fish or hunt, or I guess we'll have to hunt with rocks, or tourism, and then we can have human settlements in the outside areas, in these small areas, which the Indians called reservations. Now they call them human settlements, which we'll touch on shortly. Now, we went on and checked out what they keep talking about, the Wildlands Project and things, and how we're going to have this. So we come up with this, under the Wildlands Project, we found that the developer of it is the former Earth First member and founder Dave Foreman. Now, Dave Foreman introduced the concept of this Wildlands Project in a book called Confessions of an Eco-Warrior, and he was. Now, with the assistance of a guy, Reed Norris, whom we'll get into here shortly, he was able to evolve this concept into an actual model, which they published in a book, Wild Earth, in 1992. Now, Reed Norris, who presently serves with Foreman on an advisory board of the Greater Ecosystem Alliance, and these are people, not just bacteria, have also published a paper known as the Endangered Ecosystems of the United States, a preliminary assessment of loss and degradation. Now, we dug a little further and we found some of the concepts of this, again, And this project calls for the establishment of systems of core wilderness areas. Here we go, we're right back to this again in digging this out. Around these core areas and their interlinking corridors, buffers, we're back to the buffers, are to be established. Human activities associated with civilization, such as agriculture, industrial production, urban centers, will be allowed to continue outside the buffered regions. Now, as you can see in these maps, there's not a lot left. Every water system is to be a core area, a corridor area, one or the other. Between systems, you will have corridors for the animals to be able to go from one area to another. This is covered really well in the explanation of the Man in the Biosphere Treaty program, which comes with Dr. Kaufman's maps. In this, you see, for instance, core reserves are wilderness areas that supposedly allow biodiversity to flourish. It is estimated, claims Noss, that large carnivores and ungulates require reserves on a scale of 2.5 to 25 million acres. Okay? Now, for a minimum viable population of 1,000 large mammals, the figures would be 242 million acres for grizzly bears, 200 million acres for wolverines, and 100 million acres for wolves. Core areas should be managed as roadless areas. All roads should be permanently closed. And then we find corridors. Again, the corridors are your areas that run between areas or along rivers or large streams so that the animals can travel. Corridors are extensions of reserves. And then we go on up, we talk about the buffers. Buffers should have 2 or more regions, 2 or more zones, so that gradation of use intensity exists from the core reserve to developed landscapes. Low road density, no more than a half mile of road per mile. Now, this is the problem we've got. We went on to then to find out, how's it going to happen in America first? We found it. We started reading and found out about this thing called sustainable development. What we didn't know is it was pretty sustainable for the animals, but not much for our development as humans. We found they're going to control everything in our lives. Sustainable energy. Sustainable America New Consensus. Full of it. I got on some of the radio shows. I got to talking. Some of you here from out west are going to remember from the Stan Solomon radio show. We did a couple hours of this, asking the rest of the world, send us information, let us know what's going on. And we got this, and then we went on and we talked about what we were finding in these books, other people who had found this around the world, thank God it was shortwave. They called and they told us, hey, you're right, and here's some more. Well, they told us then about there will be no fertilizer. There will be no certain types of food. They want you to quit eating meat. And all kinds of things in this sustainable development. They want 2 types of building materials. One will be green label. Might cost you $5 or $6 for a tube or 4, but those are the ones that's going to be left because they're the ones that are going to go with all the rules and the laws and the regulations that they set up and do it in special ways. Like they don't want you to cross a creek with a log. Cable it. Don't cross it. Don't get the creek dirty. If you're one of the Amish or one of the religious groups that doesn't believe in permits, that's too bad. You're just discriminated against. You don't worship the bacteria, we don't care about you. Well, we found out in these things that by getting on the air with the President's Council on Sustainable Development Material, that it caused a problem. And I know some of you here will remember the guy came in from Stan Solomon's radio show and said the President's Council called. My God, don't let him on there. Remember that? Remember the guy from Stan? Yeah. Said, don't let him on there with them books. Well, we were just trying to help them. I mean, how do you make somebody a bestseller if you don't expose their material? So the Solomon Show flat out told them, said, well, you come on here for 2 hours, you and Norm, talk about these books. They wouldn't do it. And I don't blame them. Not a bit. I wouldn't either if I put these in. But these books, they do. They go in and they tell you everything that's going to happen to you. They tell you how you're going to live your life. Like it or not, they're going to regulate you. Now, we've seen some of the stupid stuff, but there's a lot of little stupid stuff that adds up, such as Department of Interior, through executive order. Environmental issue leads government to remove dams for fish so they can swim. Hydroelectric dams in Maine removed for fish passage. And we can go on and on and on. I mean, and this is not a joke. These are really happening. And I asked one environmentalist, well, what are we going to do about Kentucky Lake? That's the largest man-made dam lake in the United States. What are you going to do, tear the dam down? Well, that's the ultimate goal. That's what he means. What are you going to do about electricity? Well, we'll have world peace. Well, yeah, well, I'll be throwing spears at each other. I guess we will. We won't have no electricity. Talk to them about roads. Well, found out a lot about roads, such as Wednesday, September 24th, 1975. Coleman questions right of individuals to a private car in the future. This is the U.S. Secretary of Transportation, William T. Coleman, back in the 70s. They've been planning this a long time while we were sleeping and watching ball games and going fishing. New Jersey law, SCS 1700. They're going to get you off the road. Your car's 4 years old. You'll get a test, an enhanced emissions test. You don't pass, you get a 2-year permit. You lose your car. We go out, Arkansas, they're having problems. Here's one thing from Arkansas Coalition for Vehicle Choice, but we don't have all day to cover everything. We're going to run this down for you. War against the automobile, New York Post, 9/3/97. Vehicle confiscation begins in Philadelphia, November 22, 1997. You don't pass the test, you don't get your car license, they confiscate it. And I mean, this is just the way things are. It's the signs of the future, people. It's going to be here. It's going to be in Kentucky. It's going to be in Montana. It's going to be everywhere. Tighten rules, boost cost of polluting is what they're using, and they're going to give pollution credits to corporations. To corporations, people. Government and corporations are going to work together to have credits. If you pollute, you can take these individuals' cars and things and turn them in. You get a $100 credit or so. Well, now, in World War II, when you had that very thing, it was called fascism, wasn't it? But it's okay today. I don't think so. I don't want to live under their system. But we can go on and on and on. Here you go, a good one, the war against the automobile. Now, we decided we've got to do something. I like my car. I'm going to drive it. It's like when they came out to my house telling me about having to take city water or I could get a meter on the well. I don't think so. There's only one thing going that well, and it ain't a meter. So we checked in American Heritage Rivers Initiatives, where the government wants to come in and use 13 federal agencies. 13 federal agencies. And they say there'll be no new regulations. When's the last time you saw one agency that couldn't regulate you to death? And then we see in far western Kentucky another encroachment. Senator Mitch McConnell has decided that he wants to put another wildlife area in western Kentucky, and we don't have enough. So we said we've got to become active. So we have gone to our legislators. We've talked to them. And we've had one man stand up and say, wait a minute, this is wrong. The U.S. Constitution says they have to come before us legislators in order to purchase the land. But Mitch McConnell, he can't read because he's had a resolution sent to him and letters 3 or 4 times now. And he's pushed the program on. But Representative Perry Clark, he's working on this at this time, and it's because of citizen participation, going to your legislators and showing them what's wrong. And then we found out the problem is we haven't been active enough. And that's what really show you all these problems. It all boils down to the fact that it's we the people have let organizations kill us. We've been told by legislators, we are tickled to death to see you people organized in here. For years, these people come in here and they have just literally shoved this stuff down our throat. Nobody has been here to oppose them. For the last couple of years, they have been. Here's a sample. This is a publication of a group called Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. They promote a logging bill and a lot of these land regulation programs. There's a ton of them. Forestry, education bills, and so on. Landowners and forests could benefit from bills. I don't think so. It's my land. I bought it. I paid for it. It's my trees. I paid for them. You didn't. And I'm not going to put up with it. The other people in Kentucky are not going to put up with it. So they want to change our forms of government. We found out about other organizations. A thing called that our tax money is doing to us. Kentucky Long-Term Policy Research Center, where they want to have a futuristic governance, a new and creative form of governance. They want to merge the counties. And it says here, this should be accomplished before year 2000. This is our tax-paid junk. And that's what it is, it's junk. They want to merge counties. Then they want to put them under a new form of government with people, organizations, industry, and elected officials to form a new government. I don't think so. I don't want some bureaucrat telling me how to live. I don't want somebody in some industry tell me what I can do in my yard. And I sure don't want the Sierra Club or the bird watchers telling me what I can't do. So we've gone about trying to stop this because what they call human habitats or sustainable human settlements, I want no part of it. I'm a free American, and I plan on staying that way. Now, what we're doing in Kentucky is just plain people like us here, very, very few politicians, absolutely no industry. We're organizing. Now, back in the 70s, I was working for the Crime Prevention Resource Center, and I was sent to Indianapolis for a week, the most miserable week of my life. I was sick in my stomach. And I sit up there, and I had to put up with learning goofy little songs, goofy little rhymes, but they did teach us to organize at your taxpayers' expense. And I didn't know what I was going to do with that. I just wanted to come home. I didn't want nothing to do with them people. They were crazy, I thought. Well, no, they were planning. They send out 30 people a week to do this to us. For 20 years, I didn't know what I was going to do with it, and now I know. And we've been teaching people in Kentucky. We've set up organizations in every county. We're trying to get them in every precinct. And we're doing pretty good. We have passed resolutions, told them to take the United Nations and stuff it. We don't want it in Kentucky. This is Kentucky. But they want to come back with their goal, such as, this is from the Sustainable America, a new consensus. This is this lovely piece of literature. This is their stuff. Sustainable, what it's all about. Individual freedom, private property rights, national sovereignty, and free enterprise are all concepts which this report, that's this, recognizes as obstacles to be modified, harnessed, or overcome. I don't think so. I like it just like it is. I like free enterprise. It works. Unless it's merged with government and becomes fascism. I like private property. Now, it says a new collaborative process, that's this new governance, is a public-private partnership between government and selected NGOs. An NGO is a non-governmental organization like the Sierra Club, the Bird Watchers of Houdini, or whoever. Now, this is all to be done for a sustainable agenda. I don't think so. What we want you to do is you let us help you in your state, teach you how to organize, set up a reference system. You let us come, because the only way we're going to defeat this monster is working together and teach you how.
Question and answer.
Now,
there are constitutional protections both for this state and other states against this land grabbed by the UN, are there not?
Yes, there is.
Would you specifically cite which section of the U.S. Constitution?
Let's talk about this one section we were talking about earlier, Clark's River or any other thing. What we've done, we have Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, the last half of it, and we love it.
Of the U.S. Constitution?
Of the United States Constitution, not their blue UN Charter. And it states, and we'll get a picture of this on later, the first part of it, and this is what the government can do, Section 8 is, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square. We're talking in the first half here about Washington, D.C., the seat of the government. As may by session of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States. Now we did this, and this is how we got Washington, D.C. Now let's finish the last half of it. And to exercise like authority over all places, and this they have trouble understanding, purchased by the consent of the legislature. It's kind of like in the Second Amendment, politicians can't understand, shall not be infringed. Well, they can't understand consent of the legislature. In the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings, okay? This protects us. Perry Clark, our state representative, and some others have said, they can't do this. When I asked them, I said, okay, how can they let these areas be designated? Mammoth Cave, 7 counties. How can they designate it something if they don't own it? They don't own it. They don't own 7 counties around it. They own a little part. So how can they designate it anything? Our legislators said, you're right. We agree. So we had SR 35, told them, get it out. The House took it, a Republican in the House took it, and she run with it in the House, and now that becomes H.R. 18. Well, then the government comes back with this wonderful rivers program. They're going to take care of all our rivers. Well, all of our rivers will end up with corridors, and we don't want it. So now we have SR 96. Tell them take your American Heritage rivers and stuff it. The House comes back with a HB 101. Said, no, we don't want it either. Stuff it. Then we come back, Tom Ranner and Ernie Harrison, some of them in a committee, these are state reps and senators, and said before you have any more zoning laws in Kentucky, they have to consider SR 35 and meet the intent of it. And it passed. We've gotten Senate Bill 300, which says no permits and no regulations are to be allowed in Kentucky for the simple thing to satisfy the government's desire for global warming cures. But we did this by organization. So it goes back. It's all on organization. And by organizing and putting groups together, putting phone trees together, phone circles, by putting letters, fax networks, email networks, newsletters, all these things together, and by going to your legislators and sitting down with them and talking to them, we have done it. And we're going to continue. We've got bills in the legislature this time. I don't have it in front of me, but we will put it on camera. We have a bill. The governor is highly upset with us. Good. It's our land, it's our trees, and we call him Flipper Patton. He used to be considered a Southern gentleman governor until he jumped on the green bandwagon, and now he's just a flipper. And we did it with organization. The Courier-Journal, Kentucky's most liberal newspaper, even had to admit we came in force. The Senate backed down. We won, the governor lost. And we did it through organization. Every state's got to be organized. So if we can help you, you please contact us.
Norman, please keep rolling on this. Your background in initial organization was in fact guns rights, was it not? The right
I learned under the Crime Prevention Resource Center. I mean, these people, we didn't get any meat to eat or nothing. 20 years ago, turkey hot dogs, they were horrible. They were worse than they are now.
Your original organization on a state
Kentuckians for the Right to Bear Arms. We organized, and they told us, we organized people in each county. We set up phone trees and things, and I used what I was taught at taxpayers' expense
to protect the Constitution.
To protect the Constitution of the United States and the people in Kentucky.
Well, is your message to people watching this film that various organizations that already exist or could exist...
They must come together.
Must come together. So the gun rights people have
You've
come together with other organizations and groups, the Taxpayers Party...
The Taxpayers Party, Concerned Women of America, and we could go on down the line.
Yes, and various churches and various other concerned organizations have come together and put aside their differences.
We have differences.
This common enemy, is that correct?
Yeah, let me explain. We have differences. Unfortunately, we have egos, but we have agreed that we agree on 90% of the issues. And each group keeps its own sovereignty, identity, goals, and purpose. But this 90% we can work on, we're going to work together. And we have proven it works, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Is there any time left? How close are these anti-American efforts to reaching fruition?
As we covered all these different things, for some reason they're shooting at the year 2000. Maybe these people are eat up with some kind of 2000 bug, I don't know. I'll be glad the year 2000's over with.
And are you available for those people who see this film who may be located in other states? Are you available to come to their states and give them a far...
We can teach how to set up phone trees and everything. We'll go to the state and cover costs and things which will be worked out, and we can go to their state and do what we can, or they can come here and we'll sit them down and go step by step and show it to them.
There are methods whereby they can bring you to their state.
Right.
Who should they contact? Norman?
They can contact me or Gatewood.wmv.
And how will that information be up on the screen?
That information will be on the screen. We've got 3 questions that's come in. Question number 1, what is this thing called the New World Order? The New World Order is a whole new form of government for the entire world that they call governance, as I explained in the UN report on the Commission of Global Governance. What it boils down to is you're going to be ruled by bureaucrats, organizations, and industry, corporations, or as they called it in World War II, fascism. And this is the way you're going to be forced to live by these people. And that's what the New World Order is. It's a whole new world order of running things, running it by government, which will be made up of this new form of global governance. Then we have a question, How much of the Biosphere is in place now? How much of the Biosphere program? We have 47 biospheres in the United States, designated by the United Nations. 47. I don't know how many heritage sites. Not one congressman, not one senator, not one state legislator has voted for the Biosphere program. Not one. They've never been brought to our people to vote on. They've just been done. And then they want to know, the next question is, what can we do about these things, about what you've heard here today? Well, you organize. You forget your ego. You belong to an organization, you get with another and another and another, you pull together. You organize. You go to these state legislators. You set your state between you and we, the peasants, and the federal government and the United Nations. There's Supreme Court case after Supreme Court case talks about dual sovereignty. 3 of them in the 90s. Organize. And we can help you do that.
Very much, Norman Davis, for giving us your time and your effort. Norman is tireless in the pursuit of defending the Constitution and the Bill of Rights for all of us. Norman has spoken for me here today. He's spoken for everybody in this group I know. Norman's work in Kentucky is not done now, probably never will be done, but he has educated himself and others in this Commonwealth to where we can carry the ball on those days where he has to travel to other states and other jurisdictions to spread the word and educate the people there. So Norman, who's the founder and director of Take Back Kentucky, is available to travel to other states and speak to other groups and other legislators and legislatures in other states for expenses and a nominal fee. What you've seen here today is just the tip of the iceberg. When Norman arrives to educate a person or a group, he's generally at 15 minutes cleaning out the trunk of the materials that he has to reference his remarks. It's just unwieldy to try to present all that here today in this film. But we feel that it's so important that other states and other people and other jurisdictions see that you can effectively resist this new world order if you're educated and if you will step out and educate your friends and neighbors about what you found out. So if you desire to get in touch with us, if you desire to have Norman travel to your state, please get in touch with Norman Davis or Gatewood Galbraith. The methods for getting a hold of us will be flashed here on the screen, and you can write us or call us. We'd be glad to respond with any further information. Thanks very much for watching the film. We hope we've made some sense to you. We hope you join us in resisting this new world order and protecting the Constitution and the rights and privileges we all enjoy under it. Thank you very much.